I am super excited to share this book review with you today. It is one of my favorite books. I'll go ahead and put me in the corner here. This book remains on my nightstand always close at reach. It's called The 4 Agreements, a practical guide to personal freedom, a Toltec wisdom book by Don Miguel Ruiz. I can't say enough good things about this book. It is profound, it is simple, it is powerful. So let's get right into it. Here we go. Start with a quote from the book, as we often do. You need a very strong will in order to adopt the 4 agreements. But if you can begin to live your life with these agreements, the transformation in your life will be amazing. You will see the drama of hell disappear right before your very eyes. Instead of living in a dream of hell, you will be creating a new dream, your personal dream of heaven. Boy, doesn't that sound nice? The 4 agreements. Here we go. We're going to look at the following big ideas from this book. First idea will be the domestication of humans. And then we'll get into the 4 agreements. The first of the 4 agreements are, be impeccable with your word. The second, don't take anything personally. The third, don't make assumptions. The fourth, always do your best. The first step toward freedom, we stop ourselves. Let's not blame others. Breaking domestication, step by step. Repetition makes the master. All right, well, let's get into these. The first one, domestication of humans. Children are domesticated the same way that we domesticate a dog, a cat, or any other animal. In order to teach a dog, we punish the dog and we give it rewards. We train our children, whom we love so much, the same way we train any domesticated animal, with a system of punishment and reward. We are told, you're a good boy or you're a good girl when you do what mommy and dad want you to do. When we don't, we're told, bad girl or bad boy. Now, keep this in mind. This is not a criticism of the way people raise their children. This is a recognition of the way it works in our human society. This is just how it works. So the first thing to realize is that we have all been domesticated just by virtue of being raised. So that's an important first point. The second big idea is the first agreement itself. Be impeccable with your word. The first agreement is the most important one and also the most difficult one to honor. It is so important that with just this first agreement, you will be able to transcend to the level of existence I call heaven on earth. The first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. It sounds very simple, but it is very, very powerful. First, let's look at how Ruiz defines the word impeccability. Impeccability means without sin. Impeccable comes from the Latin peccatus, which means sin, and the im in impeccable means without. So impeccable means without sin. Religions talk about sin and sinners, but let's understand what it really means to sin. A sin in this context is anything that you do which goes against yourself. Everything you feel or believe or say that goes against yourself is a sin. You go against yourself when you judge or blame yourself for anything. Being without sin is exactly the opposite. Being impeccable is not going against yourself. When you are impeccable, you take responsibility for your actions, but you do not judge or blame yourself. So this is an important point. We think about this idea of without sin is to be perfect and holy and righteous, but really it just means to miss the mark, as in the mark that we're aiming at, what we're trying to accomplish in this life. When we miss that, that could be considered sin. So to be impeccable, to be without sin, is to stop sinning against ourselves. Okay, I love this. Okay, moving on to the second agreement. Don't take anything personally. Whatever happens around you, don't take it personally. If I see you on the street and say, hey, you are stupid, without knowing you, it's not about you, it's about me. If you take it personally, then perhaps you believe you are stupid. Maybe you think to yourself, how does he know? Is he clairvoyant, or can everybody see how stupid I am? Listen, nothing other people do is because of you. It's because of themselves. This is such an important point to grab hold of. People are living in their own dream. People aren't thinking about you. They're obsessed. They're self-obsessed. They're only thinking about themselves. When you might come up in their thought, It's just a tangential thought to what they have going on in their dream. So this is so important to grasp. Nothing other people do is because of you. It's because of themselves. So when somebody does something that just seems just totally wrong towards you, just realize it's not about you, it's about them. Okay, moving on to the third agreement. Don't make assumptions. We have the tendency to make assumptions about everything. The problem with making assumptions is that we believe they are the truth. We could swear they are real. We make assumptions about what others are doing or thinking. We take it personally. Then we blame them and react by sending emotional poison with our word. That is why when we make assumptions, we're asking for problems. We make an assumption. We misunderstand. We take it personally. We end up creating a whole big drama for nothing. The way to keep yourself from making assumptions is to ask questions. Make sure the communication is clear. If you don't understand, ask. Have the courage to ask questions until you are as clear as it can be. Don't make any assumptions. Rather than assuming that you know what's in somebody's head, which you don't, ask questions. Ask as many questions as you need to have clarity. When we make assumptions, we're just setting ourselves up for failure. All right, the fourth agreement, always do your best. There's just one more agreement, but it's the one that allows the other three to become deeply ingrained habits. The fourth agreement is about the action of the first three. Always do your best. Ruiz continues, under any circumstance, always do your best. No more and no less. And keep in mind that your best is never going to be the same from one moment to the next. Everything is alive and changing all the time. So your best will sometimes be high quality and other times it will not be so good. So the idea here is to always do our best. If we always do our best, we're never going to be left with this longing feeling that we could have done more. And I like the point he makes that your best is going to change from moment to moment. If I've been up for 23 hours and I'm trying to get something done and doing my best, it's probably not going to be as high quality as if I'm fully refreshed and doing that same thing. But nonetheless, I do the best that I can for that moment. So this one is gold also. Always do your best. So the next idea, we leave the four agreements and get some more practical ideas on how to implement them. The first step towards freedom. The first step towards personal freedom is awareness. We need to be aware that we are not free in order to be free. We need to be aware of what the problem is in order to solve the problem. And Vernon Howard, author of The Power of Your Supermind, tells us, encourage yourself by remembering that any detection of negativity within you is a positive act, not a negative one. Awareness of your weakness and confusion makes you strong because conscious awareness is the bright light that destroys the darkness of negativity. Honest self-observation dissolves pain and pressure that formerly did their dreadful work in the darkness of unawareness. This is so important that I urge you to memorize and reflect upon the following summary. Detection of inner negativity is not a negative act, but a courageous, positive act that makes you a new person. So let's bring some awareness to our quest for personal freedom. Oh, this is so good. I love this. I got to read this again. Because conscious awareness is the bright light that destroys the darkness of negativity. That is so, so true. I just commented on one of my friend's posts saying that awareness is the secret sauce to so many things, and I believe it to be true. So this idea that when we use awareness, it destroys, it's like a bright light destroying negativity. I love that. So the first step towards freedom is realizing what state you're in. When you can recognize when you're in a negative state, that is not a negative thing, that's a positive thing. Because with that awareness and that recognition, that negativity often just dissolves away. All right, the next big idea, we stop ourselves. Who stops us from being free? We blame the government, we blame the weather, we blame our parents, we blame religion, we blame God. Who really stops us from being free? We stop ourselves. Joseph Campbell, author of The Power of Myth, says, Freud tells us to blame our parents for all the shortcomings of our life. Marx tells us to blame the upper class of our society, but the only one to blame is oneself. So this gets us back to this idea of responsibility, how we are responsible for ourselves. Next big idea, breaking domestication step by step. There are many strong beliefs in the mind that can make this process look hopeless. This is why you need to go step by step and be patient with yourself, because this is a slow process. The way you're living now is the result of many years of domestication, really your whole life up to this point. You cannot expect to break the domestication in one day. So give yourself permission to take the time it takes to break this domestication step by step. Repetition makes the master is our next big idea. All of these old agreements which rule our dream of life are the result of repeating them over and over again. Therefore, to adopt the 4 agreements, you need to put repetition into action. Practicing the new agreements in your life is how your best becomes better. Repetition makes the master. Repetition, repetition, repetition. It's the stuff of mastery. As Aristotle told us, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. Let's remember to practice these new agreements again and again and again and watch our best get better and better and better. Great ancient wisdom from Aristotle here. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. So true. I love that. Okay, so that's it for this book, The 4 Agreements. Let me give you a little summary and rundown here of the big ideas. Domestication of humans. Just to realize that we've all been domesticated by the way we've been raised. You're either a good boy or a bad boy, and you receive punishments or rewards accordingly. Okay, so we have to realize that. The first agreement, be impeccable with your word. Again, that idea of impeccability without sin, sin missing the mark. So be impeccable with your word and don't use your words against yourself. Example, okay, self-talk. We always have self-talk going on up in our head. And when we are tempted to say something to ourselves like, oh, I suck at this. No can do. We can't have that kind of, that's not an impeccable word. That is sinning against yourself, because we have to realize how powerful our words are. It's like the program that we set to run on machines, okay? And when we use these programs, these words, we're programming our own brain, okay? So the words are powerful. If we tell ourselves enough times that I am no good at anything, we will deep down believe that we are no good at anything. Okay, so we have to break that. Be impeccable with your word. Never, ever say anything against yourself, negative against yourself. And don't say it against other people either, because you don't want to be the sowers of that kind of rotten fruit. So the first one, be impeccable with your word. Realize how powerful our words are, and never, ever, ever use them against yourself. Okay? Agreement number 2, don't take anything personally. Just realize that everybody's self-absorbed. They're not thinking of you. They've got their own dream going on. You're just a little part of it. So when you show up in that dream, don't take it personally, okay? They don't really know what's going on. They're living their own thing. Third, don't make assumptions. Have the courage to ask questions, as many questions as you need to get clarity. So don't make assumptions. It leads nowhere good. And the fourth one, always do your best. Your best will change and vary from moment to moment, but just be committed to whatever you do, do it the best that you can. And keep in mind that we stop ourselves. Don't blame others. And to break this domestication that we've been put under, we need to do it slowly, step by step. Give ourselves permission to take the time it takes, because we are where we are now because of our whole life of domestication. And lastly, repetition makes the master. You want to have these 4 agreements in front of you. Type them out, put them on your bathroom mirror or your refrigerator. You want to see them often till you realize that this is the new script you want to be running in your head, rather than the old script or the old agreements, as he says in the book. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This literally is one of my favorite books. It's had such an impact on my life, and I pick it up often when I'm kind of falling back into those patterns of domestication I grew up with, and it really helps get me focused.